Assalamu alaikum everyone. It's me, Miss Lala. So starting a new topic, that is biogenesis and abiogenesis, chapter number 1, Introduction to Biology, and the very last topic is concepts of biogenesis and abiogenesis. Have a look. Biogenesis. The word bio means life, whereas the word genesis means formation. So, biogenesis actually means life arises from life. It means that a living organisms are responsible to give birth to a living organism. But in ancient times, in bygone times, it was believed that living organisms can only be developed from clay, earth, and other non-living matter. In the bygone time, in the previous our previous biologists always said that living organisms has been developed from non-living organisms. Have a look here. Baby turtles, baby turtles are arising from egg. That clearly means that a living organisms are responsible to give birth, to give rise to a living organisms. Female fish are responsible to lay egg, and later on these eggs are developed into baby fishes. Whereas abiogenesis, the word a means no, biogenesis means formation of life. So abiogenesis is actually an old belief where it was clearly mentioned that living organisms like us, fish, bird, snakes, frogs, these are developed spontaneously from non-living organisms, and that are mud, soil, water, clay, air. So it was actually an old belief of our biologists. In the ancient times, it was quite obvious that only mice are developed from, or mice are made up of, or mice uh, has risen by moldy grains. An old concept was the sewage and garbages turned into the rats. It means that the sewage lines, or the sewage waste, and all the garbages, all the waste product, all the waste materials turned into rats. It was actually an old concept where it was clearly mentioned that non-living organisms give birth to living organisms. So, another old concept, another misconception was that soil gave rise to the frog. That soil that is found in the water gave rise to the frogs. Whereas these things, later on, these things were rejected because life can only be developed from another life. Okay, so there were few scientists who actually carried out many experiments just to show that there is misconception about abiogenesis. The theory of abiogenesis is totally wrong. So the very first scientist was actually REDI'S. He took dead snakes in a box. After few days, on that dead snakes, there were flies appeared. As we all know that flies appears on the dead and damaged things. So after few days, flies appears on the dead snakes, and flies actually laid down their eggs on the dead snake. Within few days, pupa appeared, and after 3 or 4 days, young tiny flies emerged from the dead snakes. So by doing this experiment, Rady actually wanted to make it clear that only life can give birth to another life. It means that flies were all life, so flies give birth to their own kind of species, their own type of animal. Rady, but the biologist opposed him. But other biologists who was supporting abiogenesis opposed Rady. He he performed one more experiment where he took 8 bottles. He took 8 bottles. In four of the bottles, he took dead snakes, piece of meat, and dead fishes. But he did one thing here. He let the open. He let uh, the mouth of the 4 bottles open, and other 4 bottles were all covered, were all sealed up. In the open bottles, maggots appear. Flies, maggots, pupa, another flies. So maggots appeared in the open bottles, but no maggots appeared on the closed bottle. Here one more time Reddy said that living can give rise to another living. But other biologists rejected this experiment as well. They said that in the closed bottle, in the closed bottles maggots did not appear because there was no passage for air to get enter, as all the living organism needs air to be born. So Rady uh, experimentized one more experiment. He performed one more experiment where he took pieces of meat in a bottle, but that bottle was fully covered with wire gauze. Wire gauze is a type of, what should I say? It's a type of net, NET net, which we actually use in our windows just to save us from any sort of flies or other particles. So in that bottles, no maggots appeared. Here, Rady concluded his experiment that in the last bottle, I let the mouth of the bottles open, but still no maggots appear. That simply means that life can only be arisen from life. Here, have a look, Peter. In the first bottle, it was all closed. Flies did come, but they do not get access to enter. In the second bottle, flies did appear. They laid their eggs, maggots appear, and later on in third bottle, the maggots converted into another flies. Have a look at the spontaneous generation. In the very first bottle, flask was unsealed. In a piece of meat, flies appear, maggots appear. Within a few days, pupa appear, and finally young flies. In another bottle, he let the mouth closed. No flies appear, no maggots appear, no another life appear here. In third bottle, he actually covered the third bottle with a wire gauze, with a net. And what happened? Flies did appear, but they do not get access to enter here, and then there was no life. There was another scientist, NEEDHAM'S, who actually supported the theory of abiogenesis. NEEDHAM'S supported the theory of abiogenesis, where he performed one experiment in which he actually boiled meat and water, and put the gravy in a bottle which was all closed. He actually sealed the bottle after boiling the gravy. He actually sealed the bottle, but after few days, microscopic organism appears inside the bottle. All the scientists, all the biologists who were in favor of abiogenesis got very happy that Needham had performed an experiment, and it was all clear that non-living organism give rise to living organism. But Needham did a mistake here. Due to mishandling, some sort of bacteria get fully access to enter in the gravy due to mishandling. Maybe at the time of pouring gravy in the bottle, so microscopic organisms or bacteria gets enter through mishandling, and their macroscopic organism appears in the closed jar. In another experiment, there was another biologist, Pasteur, who was fully in favor of biogenesis theory. What he did, have a look here, beta. He actually took a flask, S-shaped flask. It means the mouth of the bottle was of S-shaped. In the flask, he added yeast, water, and sugar, and let them boil. After boiling, he cooled down the mixture. Within few days, he observed that there were no microscopic organism found inside the bottle. Later on, he actually broke the seal. He actually broke the mouth of the funnel, and within few hours, he found microscopic